Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. Building an oval mirror need not be the stuff of nightmares if you follow the advice of router experts Bob and Rick Rosendahl. Today in the Router Workshop, we'll show you how to lay out and cut two different kinds of ovals. Plus, the secret of the mystery donut is revealed. The oval mirror, beautiful, inexpensive, and a real challenge to build. Next, right here in the Router Workshop.
Welcome to the Router Workshop, and today we're going to talk about ovals and mirrors.
Well, Rick, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut an oval hole in here for you, and then you can do the molding on it, but maybe you would explain to them how we got the pattern, too.
Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about how the ovals and how to use your framing square to lay out the oval.
All right, let's get started. Yep, there you go. I've got a base in here, and I got a sub-base that fits over the table in here, and that's just so I can fasten my blank to. We're going to start off with a blank frame in here in much the shape that we just had in here, other than it's a little smaller. And I got some corner blocks in it. And inside of here I got a cavity. And the cavity that I got inside of here is going to hold a block. And the block looks like this. The block fits inside and the oval part on it. Now we talked about layout and you see some squirrely lines on here, but Rick will address those a little later in here. What we're going to do is set this up, and I'm going to run these screws in. And the reason I want to do that is so we don't have any play in here. And I'm going to use a guide and a bit to do it with. So we'll just run these down inside. And all that's doing is just holding that into space in here. Now, I'm pretty solid in it. Now we need to go to the router. Rick's going to do the molding. So I'm going to use a straight bit and cut through there. And the bit that I'm going to use is a spiral bit. It's a spiral bit, but it's straight. It's half-inch, cuts a half-inch slot in it. It's solid carbide. And we'll pop that in. It's quite a long bit, so we put it inside of here. See if I can find some wrenches. And we'll tighten it down. And let's see what else we got here. Now we're going to need a guide. Need a guide to follow the pattern. Got a half-inch bit in it, so I'll use a 3/4 inch guide. And I need a ring nut. I'll put that over the bit before we get started there. And pop that inside. And there it goes. I'll just let you have a look what I got in here. I'll tighten that down. Now the bit comes up inside of here, and there's the guide. The guide's going to follow the pattern. The bit will do the cutting. Now it is a spiral bit. We got about 3/4 inch to cut through here, so it's quite a size cut to make. But let me get a depth set. And what you first do is you bottom that out to 0. And got it down here is just touching. And then with the pole stop system, I'm going to use a half-inch block. I think we got about 3/4, but you make sure that you cut right through. So we'll put that inside of here, the pole stop. I can rotate that around in here a little bit. Maybe I can get it from the other side. Run it down and tighten the lock on it. Now there gives the depth of it. That should be able to go through. In fact, I might just give it a little more and cut into the blank at the back side there just to make sure we cut right through. Now, when I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here, and I'm working on the outside, so I'm going to come from this direction and go around. Now, having done that, I probably won't take it all in one spot because it's going to be a little tough getting rid of the chip load in it. Let that sit like that, and it's in an off position, and we'll get a little bit of power here. Now remember, you're working on a pattern, and you've only got part of the guide on here, or the base to sit as a guide for it, and to keep it up tight. The router bit will pull it in tight, but just keep it snug as you come around. You'd be surprised how long that is around there. That's a long ways around. Well, there's that little groove. I'll take some out of here because when I lift the outside up, it'll go away anyway, and you'll see the tip. But there's the piece that we did, and that's the part that Rick's going to have to mold. Let's take the screws out of that and get the dirt out of here and find them. And we got those out, and we can lift this out. Take that out there, and now this is the piece that was inside here. See how that stuff fills inside of there? Now, you got another frame if you wanted in here. If you're a little careful and made a little smaller plug, you could get more than one use out of it. Anyway, see the little dirt inside of it? Well, that makes a pretty good system in it. Now, let's lift this off, and this is what Rick needs to do now. He's going to put a rabbit on one side and real fancy decorations on the front and inside as well. So I'm going to pass that over to him and let him get started at that. And I'm going to go to a different oval system. We're going to cut ovals, but we're going to make a little different system here.
All right, now what we need to do is rabbit the back out of that frame. What I've got here is a 3/8 rabbiting bit. I've got it set up at about 1/8 of an inch, and what we need to do is just set it on here and rabbit it. What you have to be careful when you're working with big pieces, and number one here is we're going to pick the face side and the bad side, and I look at this piece here, I think I'll use that around the back, so we'll just go ahead and put a small X on the front, and when we're rabbiting out the back, we're going to work on the back side. Let's look at this again closely. Now, where do we want to start with this? We want to got a fairly large piece, but the surface area is still good enough to go ahead and make sure that we are safe when we're cutting this. I like to start in the easiest grain to work, and that's going with the grain. So what we're going to do with this oval is we're going to come into this side and work with it and then go into the cutter. Don't forget you have to move into the cutter. Best way to tell whether you are moving in right or not is that if the router's taking the piece away, you're going the wrong way. You want to go back the other way. You want to be in control when you're making the cuts. All right, let's start this up and let's cut it. We'll plug it in first, and let's make the cut. Now that we got the rabbit cut done, our next cutter is a French Provincial to go around the front on the inside and around the outside of this frame. So to start with, we'll unplug the tool and let's change the cutter. All right. Here's the cutter we're going to go ahead and put in. It's going to give us a nice decoration on inside and outside. Hold her up. Now we'll raise the height to get the position we're looking for. Once we've got that, we'll drop it back inside. And because we're cutting on the inside, we shouldn't need any type of safety pin or anything. But what we really want to make sure we do is we always go with the grain first and work our way around again into the cutter. All right, let's plug her back in and let's cut it. There's our mold on the inside. All we have left now is to do the outside. Because this is all square, what I'm going to do is set up a fence on it and use the fence to cut it. All right, we have the fence here. Let's get ourselves a couple of clamps. Clamp down the one side. Tighten that down. Let's get a block here so we can isolate the bearing a little bit. We don't need that when we're using the straight pieces. And tighten that down. Let's just double check. I think it moved a little bit. All right, looks perfect. And let's go ahead now and mold on the outside. Now remember, when we're working on the outside, we want to go across the grain, with the grain, across the grain, and back with the grain. All right, let's go ahead and cut it.
Well, we got another blank over here, and my pattern. So we'll put that in and lay that into spot. And we've got the plug in the back that fits down inside of here. And we'll get a hold of my screw gun machine here, and we'll put a couple of screws down in it. And that's just to hold everything in spot. And now what we need to do is tip that up. And I need to fasten this afterwards from the back side. But now what we're going to do start with is we're going to put the groove in here to receive the glass. And I'm going to start off with the router and a guide and a bit. And the bit we're going to use is a 3/4 inch bit in here. And across the corners in here, straight bit. I'm going to put that inside, pop it in, and we're going to tighten it in the spot. And we're going to use a guide. Now the guide I'm going to use is going to be a larger guide than I'd really need for this bit, except we're going to use our decorative bit and it'll run through it. So the guide is 1.5 inches in diameter to allow that cutter to go through. And we'll put that in. I'm going to have to get my ring nut on here first. That's a long length on that bit. Get my hands in the right place here. Tighten that in. Now I don't need to go very deep. What I need to do is allow for the thickness of the mirror, probably a back cover in it or whatever there. So I'm going to pop this down just like that till I get to a 0. And then I'll lower this down inside here. Give you kind of an idea what I've got. And I think I got about 3/16, and that's what I need right there. And that's how deep we're going to go. Now, just pop that up. Got a switch in the off position. And we'll plug in here and see. Get this plugged in the right direction. I want to go around, and this way we always have to go counterclockwise or tight in here this back way as you go. You got to go from left to right because the bit will pull you up tight to the pattern. Now, find my little brush in here. You can see the groove that I put in the back. Now what I need to do is take that pattern out of here and flip that over. I'll put that in reverse here and whoop, get that tip back in here. And those out. And we'll lift that pattern out first. And we'll flip this over. Shake that out. Maybe you'd like to have a look and see my groove that I've got. Now we'll put it in the other direction. Pop it in like that. And we'll put the pattern back in. And of course we got to put the screws back in also. And that'll hold it into place. Now that's just going into that backer board. Hopefully you don't have screws long enough to go down into your good work table. Now I've got to go back to the router here after a bit, but here's what I'm going to do. Let me get my pencil in here. We're going to cut a groove around here. What it is a mold. It's going to have a round over. Then we're going to have a space in here and another one. So that oval pattern will come in. Well, in order to hold that into place, I'm going to need a couple of screws out here to do that. And I've got 2 holes on the back side of this. Let me just change tips in here. See if we can put that into place. And we'll tip this up. In fact, we'll tip it right over. And on the back side here, we'll run a couple of screws down in. Now that'll hold that oval from slipping around after I cut it. Now we can flip it back again. And that should keep things in the way. There, we got it. Now we got to go back to the router. And don't forget to unplug your router. We're going to change a cutter in it. And this time we'll put our molding bit in it. And that molding bit is a round over bit, and it's a plunge round over. Take this one out. Here's what it looks like. It's got a sharp point on it. In a sense in here it's 1/4 inch wide, but it does have just a complete round over in it. Now, that'll go right through that 3/4 inch material. So we're going to put that in. I'm going to have to put it through the guide in here because of length. Pop it in there where we get it exactly what we want for height. And tighten it down. And I'd probably just start off and make a little pass in it, and then I'll show you what kind of a depth I'm looking for in it. We're going to come down in here, get my little pull stop up out of the way so I can see what's going on. And we'll pop it in here, and what I'm going to do, same direction again, come around, get it down. So just slip it in here, and I'm going to take a guess at this to start with, and then I'll come back to it because I want to get that line in the pattern. So let's see what we got here. This is the first one we're going to do. Go all the way around. Now let's just take some of this debris out. You can see I got a little rolled over edge in it. But what I'd like to do is make that profile more pronounced in here. So what I need to do is pop it in here again and go down a little deeper. And that should make the ride. You know what's neat about that? Those pieces did come loose in there and moved around. But I'll tell you what really happens. When a cutter's cutting on both sides of the wood, then you don't get any tear out in. So you get a nice smooth edge if you do that. Now, we want to use that same pattern. How do you get a step out here to get that a little wider? Well, this is a kind of a neat thing here. And several people I know that have probably used it before here. But it's kind of a donut system. That hole inside of that is exactly the same diameter as the guide, and that's the width of what we need. So what it's going to do is extend me around on the outside edge. And as it's on there loose like that, it'll spin and follow with me. So what we'll do is just place that in here, and we got the depth the same, so we don't have to change that. And now, the only thing you have to do is make sure that you don't get any debris underneath it, between it. But being a round surface like that, it won't let you do that even. So let's see what happens here. Now remember, I got screws on either side, so it's holding the frame in its place. Now, let me just get a brush here. I'm doing real good. You know, it's coming right parallel around it. Now I can plunge down the rest of the depth and clean it up, and it should be molded on both sides. So let's see what happens here. We have moved around. Everything's in place. Isn't that neat? Now keep in mind that that's an oval, it could be a circle, it could even be anything irregular, and it'll follow whatever you've got in here. Now, what I did was leave a little material, and I left a little material on either side, and that's a good idea. Otherwise, those pieces being wedged here would rattle around in it, and it could damage your part in it. Now what I need to do is take this apart, get it out here so that you can see what's going on. And I think what I'll do is I'll turn it over first, and take that outside plugs off first. See what happens in here. Got that off. Now, man, get my little brush in here. Talk about make a mess. That's why you should work in the living room, see? Drop something and don't get damaged. Isn't that a neat mirror? Look at that frame. Could be a picture frame oval. If you turn it around on the other side, you'll see the nice groove in there to receive your picture. Now, let's just review this again. We went in here with a straight bit and cut that deep. Then when we come from this side with the pattern bit. We cut down till it met it and it spun it loose on it. Then we went to the outside and cut right through, and we end up with a frame in it.
Now it's time for tips from the workshop, viewer mail, and tricks of the trade on Router Bits Tips and Wood Chips.
What we're going to do today is to show you how we make ovals. We're going to first off use a framing square and lay out the long part of our rectangular shape that we're going to start with. And in my case here, I'm going to set it up at 18. So we'll mark 18 to start with. The next thing we want to do on that same rectangle is find out where the center of that is, which is at 9. So we're going to mark that one. Then what we're going to do is we're going to measure the short side of the rectangle, which is going to be, in this case here, just under 12, or 12 we'll call it. And we're going to find the center of that one, which is going to be about there. And we're going to go ahead and draw these lines here so we can see the rectangular part before we start on the small diameter and the larger diameter of the circles we're going to make. I'm going to need to lay out the other portion of this one here so I can get the center line here, or break this rectangular into 4 quadrants. And we'll start off with that one. Now we'll line these 2 lines up and get that piece in the center. Now let's find the 9-inch and mark it. Now that we've got it into 4 quadrants, we're going to try and find the centerpiece that's going to allow us to do the smaller radiuses in the two corners. So we're going to go ahead and first off start off with this corner here and this one here and lay out the first one. And let's find the other one and find the center to that one and be right on the line here. The next one we want to do is go on to the other side now, lay it out. And the last one, which is right here, I'll get it set up so we found the center point here. Now that we've got it broken down, we need this point here and this one here for doing the small circles. I'll go get my compass that I've got here. All I'm using is a stick. And what we're going to do is to first off find the center point. And with the small nail, we'll get our hammer here and just tack it into the center point and make sure we can move freely. And let's go ahead and put the circle on. Then we're going to remove this and go down to the other side and put the other small radius in place. And these are the ends to the ellipse that we're making. So we'll go ahead and put the next one in place here and tack it down. Hopefully we've got it very close here. It's looking not too bad. And the last is the major radius that we have to work with. And that'll be along the 2 sides here. And we'll see how close we can get with that one. Again, we're working right on the edge here. So we're going to just try and get as close to that edge as we possibly can without being off too much. And then we want to join the tangent and flip over to the other side. And now we've got the last major radius to put in, and we'll put that in place. And take it off, and let's take a close look at this, what we've got. And now, as you can see, we've got the radius ready to tie into the smaller radius, come across the other side, get down on this side here, and that's how we make ellipses or ovals.
Well, I got this oval frame done, Rick, and what I had here was a spot that had 4 pieces and 45 across the corner. But first, I cut and put a straight bit in here that made this little indentation, the rabbit for the mirror. And then on the face side, we come and cut the inside and then the outside, and it looks pretty good.
Boy, I tell you, that looks great. Using just the bearings, though, we did this oval here. We've gone ahead and cut it out first, and then used the piloting bit for the rabbit in the back and the front, and then the straight cutter to take it around the outside. I think we covered ovals today, don't you, Dad?
We did it.
All right. Don't forget to join us next time, right here on the Router Workshop.
We'd like to hear from you. You can email us at the address on your screen. Send your comments, questions, or project ideas to the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 608, Chamberlain, South Dakota 57325. Or in Canada, the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 280, Ely, Manitoba ROH-OHO. To learn more about the Router Workshop, visit us at the internet address on your screen. If you're planning a paneling or countertop installation, you'll want to be with us next time in the Router Workshop as router experts Bob and Rick Rosendahl show you the tricks of the trade. Whether you're cutting around a wall plug, splicing a panel, or scribing an uneven wall, your router can be your best friend. Next time, right here in the Router Workshop. Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. For $16.99 plus $4.99 shipping and handling, you can order Bob and Rick Rosendahl's The Router, a 130-page book which includes a plan to build the router table and bench, plus numerous tips, techniques, and educational information. Call 1-800-803-1449.